Hello. Hey, how's it going? I'm just gonna pin my Instagram in the comments. Pin. All right. Hey guys. Hey Carter. Hey Mom. How you guys doing? I'll just wait a minute. Hey Nia. Thanks for organizing this. It's so awesome. I've been watching some of the other ones. It's just so great to see other artists talk about their art, which is a privilege even during normal times, let alone when we're all isolated like this. Thank you. So I am in my studio. It's also my room, which could be seen as a disadvantage, but I see it as an advantage. It's very convenient being able to wake up and instantly be in my studio. So I'll just give you guys, that's about it. And I have some drawings on my bed here, which I'll get to in a moment. It's very, very personalized. Definitely screams Shane, if you know me well. All the Lego and the lots of space themed. I have the International Space Station, the Saturn V rocket, the lunar lander, the Mars rover. All right, so I'm not sure what to talk about first. I go to ESA, so I go to Etobicoke School of the Arts for contemporary art. Nia is one of my classmates who's organizing this. She runs Us Gallery. So impressed and amazed with all that she's achieved with that. It's amazing. It's great giving people opportunities because people our age don't always have opportunities like that. And it's awesome for the community to develop when we're all in high school and younger, like rather than once we get out into the world, because now once we get out into the world we're already have some experience and we're already prepared a bit and we kind of know how things work, and it's just so it's a really great opportunity. So in terms of me, I love astronomy and cosmology, so the study of the stars, the study of the universe, the origin of the universe, astrophysics. Next year, or in the fall, I'll be going to Western University for astrophysics, which I'm very excited about, just to be able to learn about that stuff constantly. And it directly fuels my art making. Everything I learn to do with the universe is brought into my art, makes its way into my art, whether it's before I make the thing, I learn something and I realize that can apply to me, mostly through a metaphor usually, or after, when thanks Vivian. Often after I've made the artwork, I realize, oh my gosh, this totally ties into something I'm learning now, and then it becomes that. And I'll never say, oh, never. It's about that. It's about what I made it about in the moment. It's always changing, and I'm always gonna accept that it's always changing, because nothing in the universe is static. Everything changes with time. So, first off, I'll show my drawings. I have some laid out on my bed here. So the scribbling texture, it really started off as just doodling on my worksheets. You can probably hear the dog barking. Scribbling on my worksheets during class instead of paying attention in class. And then eventually I realized I could probably make art out of this, and it kind of reminded me of my train of thought, because it really was just what I was doing when I was thinking, or not thinking. And so initially I was thinking it kind of represents a memory with neurons bouncing around in my brain, and just the connections and the flowing of thoughts in your mind. And so each drawing would be kind of a memory. And then eventually, I basically accepted I'm going to make art about space, because that's something I'm really passionate about. That's something that means a lot to me. And so I basically adapted it, and I didn't forget about what it originally was, the texture, because that'll always be a part of it. It's when I'm drawing, each drawing and each scribble and each little detail is an aspect of what I was thinking in that moment. It's a documentation of whatever I was thinking about, and it's almost a memory in itself, because all that a memory is documentation and a record of something that happened, something that you thought, something that you perceived. So here is a cosmic body, like a planet, a star, a black hole, or an atom or a subatomic particle. And this is the field of space-time, or the electromagnetic field. I'd like to leave it really open-ended. I try not to assign meaning to it, but I know what it does, what I see when I see it, and that's definitely cosmic bodies floating around. It becomes more obvious in some ones like this, where you kind of have a sun and some planets, or a planet and some moons. And just like space-time curves in the presence of matter and mass, I try to make it kind of seem three-dimensional, like the field is curving and it's denser. The scribbles are denser, closer to an object. And then I don't fill in the object. I'm really just drawing the negative space, drawing what we don't see, reminding us that there is so much that we don't see, so much that we don't perceive. Because really, the spectrum of light that we see is just a tiny fraction of the full spectrum of electromagnetic radiation, electromagnetic waves. Thanks, Grace. Thank you. Oh, I miss you guys. I miss art class so much. Being it's great that we can do these things. Because talking about art is so helpful, so healthy for the process. And I definitely miss being in a room with people who all share a common goal of just wanting to progress their art and progress their understanding of the world around them. But this is a substitute. So that's the drawings. I am still making them, although I've kind of moved on to a new body of work, but I'm still making them for sure, because I like to make them, and it's peaceful for me. And there are some people who want to buy them, and I can't say no to that, because I need to fund the process. So I have my fountain pen here. This is what I use to do the drawings, and I can show you just kind of an example of what it looks like. So I really just am scribbling. I really try not to think about it. The only thing I'm thinking about in the moment is how dense the scribbles are. So when it's denser, it'll look more like that. I'll probably have to go a bit slower. And I think a big part of the drawings is the chaos in the detail, but then in the bigger picture, it comes together to to be something that has order, something that we can recognize, which is exactly what the universe is. It's just us identifying patterns in the chaotic motion of particles. And I talk about that a lot more in this newer work, The Pendulum. So it all started when I was kind of looking back on my life and thinking about how what are the kinds of things that I can learn from how my life has gone. And the past year, I had a lot of difficulties that I had to get through, and I wanted to see what I could learn from that. And so right away, I thought about chaos. The unpredictability of life just kind of stood out to me. And so I started doing research about chaos theory, which this double pendulum is an example of. Chaos theory is the study of basically all things, the universe, but from the perspective of chaos and unpredictability. And as I'll explain, so a chaotic system, such as this pendulum, it has sensitive dependence on initial conditions, which is basically the fancy way of saying a tiny difference in how it is released, a tiny difference in the initial conditions will set it on a very different course. So with the pendulum, you can see, I'll just set it here. Oops. So I'm trying to release it from a very similar spot, and it takes that path. That's its motion. And then if I try to set it in the exact same spot again, I won't be able to, first of all, because I'm imperfect and it's imprecise, but it'll give a completely different motion, to the point where the differences are so small that as precisely as I can measure its initial trajectory, I will not be able to exactly predict, or even close to predict, what its path will be, because of how exaggerated the differences become at each point throughout the path. So this is what I've been making out of that. So I've been filming it, and I try to basically trace the motion of the pendulum using After Effects, and it ends up looking like that. And so I try to make as many as I can and basically use each path as sort of a set of data that then can be assessed, and I can basically draw the conclusion this is a chaotic system because I'm setting it so similarly to begin. Thank you, Tina. And then it just goes on a dramatically different course. You can see how different the course is in each one. And so it's kind of proof of that. And so when you compare it to life, you see so many similarities. You see so many symmetries between that and our lives. So here I'll just use the example of two of them. When you think about life, you start off really pretty similar. The only difference is maybe DNA. You can kind of compare the initial dropping it, the way you drop it, and how the very precise trajectory to DNA and just how a life begins. And if you compare it to this one, you can see it seems to be going on the same path. But at some point, the differences, see, even this shape here is pretty similar. But slowly, as it goes along, the differences are exacerbated, and you're left with a completely different thing, which I think you can compare to life pretty directly. Like, the tiniest little things that happen in our lives set us on a completely different course. And basically what you're left with when you think about all this is just, wow, like I can't predict anything that happens. So, like, when you look at how this year especially has gone, let alone every single individual event or day or month or week in your life, um, it's so unpredictable, and no one predicted this. Well, scientists said we were due for a pandemic, but nobody could say this is what's going to happen. And so we just go about our lives planning because we have to make plans, or else nothing will come together the way we want it to. Um, but as soon as you make those plans, we get really attached to them. And we start to forget there's no guarantee that these plans will happen and happen the way you want them to, exactly in every detail. And the more detailed your plans are, the more plans you make, the more specific they are, the less it'll line up with reality and how things really occur. Um, and you can just sit there and complain and say, well, nothing's going as planned. But it's so ridiculous because there was no guarantee that these plans would like be followed through with. Um, and it's hard because we all feel so robbed of everything that we planned for this year. And of course it's hard, and we're all human, and we're all going to feel that loss. And I'm not taking that away from anyone, but in terms of moving forward, there's the only way to move forward from here is to accept that. And for me, the pendulum has been super helpful. It helped me come to terms with this past year, how it went, and now how things are going. I find myself a lot more at peace with it and able to cope with it, understanding that there was no guarantee that things would go as planned, and this is just the way things are happening. Um, and we can't go back and regret specific events because you don't know all the details that had to line up for that to happen, and the tiniest thing could be the thing that set it off course, and you can't go and say it's like when people time travel, oh, this is the I'm going to stop this from happening. Chances are you don't know the exact thing that made that happen, and you can't go back and change something from happening, or you can, and you end up changing it in an entirely different way, and you make it go on a completely different course, one that you didn't even, maybe even worse. So yeah, you really just we have to accept this is what has happened, regardless of what I wanted to happen, because my plans were really just predictions. And let's move forward. What can we learn from the way things have occurred? And what can we take away from it that is positive? Because there's always something positive within each thing that we can take. So that's the pendulum. I'm still going through and making as many as I can. It's really helped me, like I said, and I hope it can help other people try to come to terms with how everything's playing out, and just move forward, help each other, support each other. Acceptance is key to peace of mind. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, that'd be awesome. Anything about my art, about me, about my opinion on anything, I'd love to talk about stuff. And I learn something new every time I talk about my art, and every time I think things through. It like really explaining is the best way to learn things. What is your favorite part about the art that you make? I think I'm learning. I think I'm still in the process of learning what my favorite part is and what part I benefit from most. But so far, the part that I've loved most is what I've learned. And that's from a selfish point of view. How have I benefited from my art making and the things that I've learned? But more and more, every time I make things, I realize how much more it can be about what am I sharing with others, and what are others like. How can art be the platform which we can use to share with each other? So it's not just me putting something out into the world, but it's me laying down the groundwork for a conversation to be able to start between me and everyone else in the world and my audience. And then what can I gain from that, and what can they gain from that? And just, it's all about sharing. And it's so ridiculous to think that we can learn about anything just in our own little bubble. Even from a scientific perspective, like, why are we going to other planets and why are we studying other planets? It's literally to learn about our own planet. Like, the best way to learn about something is to take other examples and compare and contrast. Yeah, that's some advocating for going to Mars. Yeah, even like there's a quote, I wish I knew the name, but one of the astronauts on one of the Apollo missions in the 70s was he was on the moon, and he basically, looking back, he took a famous photo of the Earth from the moon, and it's called Earthrise. And he said, we came all the way out here to the moon, and the greatest thing we discovered was Earth. So we go and then we look back. What are your plans after ESA? So I'm going to Western University, and I'm going to study astrophysics, which is just this. It's kind of the study of everything. An astrophysicist would tell you that, but it's basically just everything from the subatomic particles that make up the universe to the future of the universe and the biggest things in the universe. So black holes interacting, and galaxies, and the whole universe as a whole expanding, and the Big Bang. It's just basically the study of everything, the study of the cosmos. Yeah, and I'm very excited for that. I'm also expecting to get a big slap in the face in terms of my learning habits and my work habits. But I guess that's the same with everyone going to university. It's a big adjustment. Especially now, I've been given the opportunity to just absolutely slack off at the end of this year. Like, all my courses are going at such a slower pace, and I find myself having a lot of time to do all the work that's been assigned online through the online school system. Yeah, I think the density of work next year will be very, very surprising. So yeah, the drawings, the pendulum. I really miss ESA. I gotta say, it really hurts. In some ways, it's probably it's a different type of goodbye for sure, because it was very abrupt. It was less, it's like ripping a Band-Aid off really quickly. In some ways it's good, in some ways it's much worse. Yeah, hoping to find closure in the upcoming year. But I do think, honestly, class of 2020, I think will probably have the most high school reunions of any year in history, because just without that closure, I think we'll all feel pretty attached to, we'll have an urge to spend more time with each other and see each other again sooner. I can speak for myself, at least. I was not eager to leave ESA. I'm very excited for university, but I was definitely very, very happy where I was at. Any more questions? I can talk a bit about my inspirations. I have a wall of books over here. Um, Kurt Vonnegut, Alan Lightman, Carl Sagan is pretty much my biggest inspiration. Stephen Hawking, I've yet to read that. I'm very excited for that. This series was just amazing. Best of luck in the future. Thank you, Grace. You too. You too. So Carl Sagan, he, as far as I can see, kind of popularized science um, in the 20th century. He made it, all of a sudden it was accessible to regular people, and it wasn't you didn't have to be a scientist to enjoy science and appreciate science and think scientifically about the world around you. So that just he hasn't been alive since I was alive, but just looking back, and I watched so many videos, the way he talks about things, he's just so knowledgeable and so graceful in the way he talks and articulate, but also seems to be able to separate his ego from all of it pretty well, which I admire and aspire to be able to do. Just be able to talk about it in a way that seems humble and not like you're saying something that I know that you don't, like I'm preaching, but more let's have a conversation about it and let's share our thoughts on this. But we're doing the art community is doing a lot of things right now, mobilizing. The Canadian Art in Isolation project is doing very well, it seems. ESA is affiliated with that, where we're sending art in and having it dispersed, given to seniors that are in isolation, because just the idea that the loneliness, which is really sad to think about, but the loneliness that isolation brings can kind of be, that art can help with that and help people get through these hard times, which have been made even harder by very recent events. The world seems to be, or at least North America, seems to be in a bit of a mess right now. But I have hope. I'm a very optimistic person, and I think the best thing we can do is just come together, and I think hardship should promote unity, not divide. What can you see yourself doing with an astrophysics degree? How dare you? How dare you ask me that? That's my dad, by the way, asking that. For me, the thing that I can actually see myself doing the most is teaching, because for me, the most rewarding thing that I've been able to do, especially through art, but even like tutoring younger grades at school, is explaining things, because as soon as you explain things, you learn it in a completely different way, and the act of explaining something makes it so much clearer for you, and you understand it so much better. So I think a teacher would be a very rewarding job for me personally, and just knowing that I can impact kids and lend people, like give people a way of thinking that I think the world needs a bit more of. What's your favorite thing that you learned about the universe? Favorite is hard. I think the most rewarding thing was learning that each and every one of us is completely alone in our minds. I can never know what someone else is experiencing. I can try to understand it, and I can perceive things, but perceiving is distinct from knowing something is happening. Um, but that being said, that leads to the understanding that we have to reach out to each other, because being alone in our minds is the scariest thing. And you can live a stagnant life where you don't progress and don't learn new things and don't like keep an open mind. And but that's terrible to think about, because really we need to be open minded, and we need to connect. We need to reach out across what separates us to be able to progress, to be able to find whatever it is we're looking for, and feel fulfilled. So, yeah, I talk a lot about this stuff in my art talk, which will be on, I think, the 25th. Maybe someone correct me, it's the 23rd or the 25th. Art Talk 13. So that is very exciting. And it's nice that we can still do that despite not being able to do it in person. Yeah, just the distance between us is why we reach out. So I'm alone in my mind. I cannot know what someone else is feeling. I can't know what someone else is seeing or perceiving, but we can connect, and I can share with someone else, maybe make their life a bit better, and they can give me something that I can use to progress and move forward. And yeah, the past year I suffered from a concussion, which was really a mild concussion, but ended up setting me on this course of more gentle head hits that I never really recovered from, which gave me a lot of headaches. That was the main symptom, and a sensitivity to technology, where I couldn't really use screens at all. I'm still pretty sensitive to technology, and still struggling with that, but it's gotten much better. But really, that taught me, like, oh my gosh, I'm going through this. Doctors are trying, like, no MRI scan can tell me. Thanks, Vivian. That's really nice. I see everything you said in your drawings. I'm glad. Yeah, just the headaches taught me, really, like, there was no MRI scan that could show other people what I was experiencing. All of a sudden, I was realizing I'm in this bubble of consciousness, and everything outside is something that I'm perceiving, and I can't see what someone else is perceiving. I can't really prove that any of it is going on, but to suffer is horrible, and we can achieve happiness and achieve fulfillment by reaching out to each other and reaching across the gap that separates us. So me reaching out and saying, here's how I'm feeling, here's the pain I'm experiencing, and them saying, okay, we're trying to understand, let's try and figure out how to make you feel better. And yeah, so it's definitely a big part of the medical world. But you see it in everyday life. Especially, oh my gosh, when listening to arguments, like, I wish I could just sit back when I'm arguing with someone and listen, because sometimes the things we argue over, like, was I the one who forgot to, I don't know, put something back in the cupboard? And it's like, just shut up. Memories are so malleable. Like, no one actually has the answer. We just need to just reach across what separates us, not argue about the little things that we can't actually prove, and just think about what's actually important. And I wish I could, in the moment, tell myself these things, but of course I'm human and I can't, so I'll still argue about it. But often all we need to do is just think about, like, how uncertain our reality really is, and if we're actually gonna make compromises and understand each other, we need to accept that and act with that in mind. So, don't think I have anything more to say. If there are any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But then I think we'll wrap this up. I definitely want to thank Ackerley for the opportunity. Like I said, it's such a rewarding experience to talk about this stuff. And to connect with you guys. I hope you guys can gain something from it as well. I definitely have learned throughout this, because learning is definitely a process that never ends and is constant, for sure. It's continuous. So, yeah, I guess we'll wrap this up. Thanks again to Nia and Ackerley. It's great that you're doing this, and definitely everyone watch all the studio visits if there are more in the future. Yeah, it's a great way to connect and stuff. So thank you guys. Take care. Everyone stay safe. Bye.